Let's pick right up where we left off in the previous annotated PowerPoint. We were talking about levels of organization in the human body. Well, first let's talk about the chemical elements, the atoms that form the molecules and macromolecules. This is chapter 2 in your textbook. This is what you covered in Bio 156. Chapters 2, 3, and 4 of your textbook we don't cover in Bio 201 because you already covered them. Now, a lot of you may not have realized when you took Bio 156 that it's a real prerequisite. And what I mean by that is we expect you to know all that stuff. We don't have time to teach it again in Bio 201. We've got to move on. So if you're not familiar with all this, you better go back and review it because it's going to show up all semester long. It will show up on exams and on quizzes. I expect you to know all of this, okay? So first of all, let's talk about elements. O, C, H, and N make up 96% of the human body. Isn't that something? Like I weigh roughly 180 pounds, so something like, 173 pounds of me are just O, C, H, and N. Could you make something as awesome as me with just 173 pounds of O, C, H, and N? I doubt it. You should know what those letters are. O is oxygen, then C for carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. We can add in some others and we get 3.8% more. Now we're up to 99.8. So these really, the elements that you see now, these are the principal elements of the human body. There are some other ones that are important, but these are 99.8%. Ca, you should know, is calcium. P, what's P? Don't say potassium. P is phosphorus. What's K? Yeah, K is potassium. Why the hell is K potassium? Potassium does not start with a K. Anybody know? It's from the Latin, kalium. Kalium is the Latin name for potassium. So you'll see in healthcare, you'll see words like, for example, hypokalemia. Hypokalemia. You should be able to look at words like that and figure out what they mean, even if you've never seen them before. Hypo means below or not enough. Kalium, potassium. Emia means in the blood. So what would hypokalemia mean? It would mean you don't have enough potassium in your blood. See, these words are not hard. You just look at the parts and then you can figure them out. S is for sulfur. Na is for, S. You would have thought S was for sodium. No, S was for sulfur. Na is for sodium. What the hell is going on here? Once again, Latin, natrium. So for example, if you had hypernatremia, test yourself right now. Do you know what that means? You should. Hypernatremia, too much sodium in your blood. Cl chloride, Mg magnesium, Fe iron. So the four basic macromolecules of the human body are carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. You should know what these are and you should know all about them. So carbs. Carbs are for immediate energy. Carbs are what your body likes to use to make ATP, the basic energy currency of the human body. You have glucose in your blood right now. You also store glucose in the form of glycogen. You store that in your liver and your skeletal muscles. When you reach out to grab something, you're burning lots of ATP, and you probably use lots of carbs to make that ATP. So carbs are what power the body. That's what allows you to walk and talk and think. Well, some of you anyway. So those are carbs. Lipids, another name for lipids, are fats. Lipids are energy storage, and they also make up cell membranes. So the phospholipid bilayer, remember, surrounds every one of your cells. The plasma membrane holds the cell contents in and keeps other things out. And then lipids for storage. Remember the main storage lipid in the human body? Triglycerides. Why are they called triglycerides? Because they have a glycerol head and 3 fatty acid tails. I expect you to know all this. Other common lipids, triglycerides, phospholipids, and the one that is the basis for all of the steroid hormones in your body, and that is cholesterol. So go back and review if you need to. We expect you to know these things. Proteins. Proteins are polymers. They're long strings of beads, and what's each bead that makes up a protein? You should know this. Amino acids. Proteins are big strings of amino acids. Just as with carbs, a starch is a big string of glucoses. A protein is a big string of amino acids. There are two basic kinds of proteins in the body. Globular and fibrous. Fibrous proteins are what actually make your body. Those are things like collagen and keratin. They make the structure. Proteins actually make up your skin, your muscles, your inner organs. They form the matrix of your bone. Proteins are what you're made of, so I say structure. But globular proteins are the workers of your body. Globular proteins are the ones that wear hard hats and carry lunch pails and punch a time clock. Globular proteins are things like enzymes and hormones and transporters and channels and pumps and so on. They're doing all the work. So how do they do the work? It takes energy to do the work. Yeah, so they use the carbs and possibly the lipids as well. So get this clear in your head, all right? Proteins make your body and they do all the work inside your body. Lipids are for storing energy for later in case you run out of carbs. Carbs are for energy right now, all right? Sometimes I hear people say proteins are for energy. No. When's the only time your body wants to use proteins for energy? Basically when you're starving to death, because proteins are too important. If you start using proteins for energy, you're going to dissolve your own body and you're going to take away all the workers and your body won't function properly. Finally, the nucleic acids, RNA and DNA. Nucleic acids are really the instruction manual of your body. That's how your cells know which proteins to make. They read the code in the DNA and the RNA. If you're not totally on top of this, you better go back and review Chapter 2 in your book. Let's then talk about the cellular level, the next level up. There are lots of different kinds of cells. They have many specialized components, and you should know all of these. The nucleus, the mitochondria, the rough ER, the smooth ER, the Golgi apparatus, the lysosomes. Did you remember just those right there? There are a lot more. Nucleus, that's where you have your DNA and your RNA. Mitochondria, what happens there? That's the ATP. That's the power plant of the cell. The rough ER, you make proteins. Smooth ER, make lipids. Golgi apparatus, you package them for delivery. Lysosomes contain enzymes. Those are kind of like the recycling centers where you break things down and recycle them. Go back and review all this. If you don't remember, you have to know it. Cells have semi-permeable membranes because when a cell makes something that has to go someplace else, it has to be able to get out of the cell. And likewise, cells need nutrients, and those have to be able to get into the cell. So the cell has a membrane, but there have to be ways for things to get through. Remember, some things can simply wiggle through. Do you remember the word for that? Yeah, diffusion. But in some cases, we may have to actually use energy to get it through. And then we're talking about active transport. So the cell membrane, the phospholipid bilayer, is full of channels and pumps that allow things to move back and forth between the inside and the outside. We're going to spend a lot of time talking in particular about the sodium-potassium pump, which is hugely important for the nervous system. Cells engage in protein synthesis. They are making the proteins that are doing the work in your body and the structure as well. Cells multiply through stem cells and cell division. Do you know what a stem cell is? You should. There are really two kinds of stem cells, two categories, embryonic stem cells and adult stem cells. Embryonic stem cells can become any cell in the human body. That's why researchers want them, because they basically hold the secret of life. Adult stem cells can normally only turn into one or two things. We're going to see a lot of adult stem cells this semester. That's why you have to know about stem cells. Cells communicate through cell signaling. So you learned in Bio 156 about paracrines. These are little chemicals that travel from cell to cell. Right now, with the COVID-19 and the coronavirus, you may have read about this. One of the things that makes it so bad is that your immune system overreacts. The virus causes your immune system to go nuts. And there are little paracrines called cytokines, and the immune system overreacts and creates what's called the cytokine storm. It causes massive inflammation, and in the case of this respiratory virus, it causes your lungs to fill up with mucus and water, and then you suffocate to death. So paracrines are a pretty big deal. Hormones, by definition, travel in the blood. We won't talk about them much in Bio 201, but they're huge in Bio 202. You do need to know about them. We will talk about some in Bio 201. Neurotransmitters are the way that neurons talk to each other. They are chemical messengers that travel across the synapse from one neuron to another. You're going to have to know about a dozen or maybe 15, I can't remember, neurotransmitters this semester and what they do. Things you've heard about on TV, serotonin and dopamine and all kinds of stuff that they tell ridiculous nonsense about. You'll be able to spot the nonsense when we get done with this class. Tissues, many of the same cells, similar cells, all bunched together, organized around particular functions. There are 4 basic tissue types, and you learned these in Bio 156 as well, or Bio 157. Epithelial tissue lines cavities and surfaces, often forms membranes. It surrounds things, holds things in, holds things together. Well, holds things in. Connective tissue is really what holds things together. Different kinds of connective tissue include cartilage, tendons, ligaments, adipose tissue, bone, and blood. Blood is a liquid connective tissue. So we will be talking about a lot of connective tissues. We'll see, for example, that in your skin, the outermost layer of your skin is epithelial tissue. Underneath you have connective tissue. That makes a difference. You'll have to know that. That's why you took Bio 156. You have to know about different kinds of tissues. Muscular tissue obviously makes muscles. What's big and red and eats rocks? A big red rock eater. Where do you find muscular tissue? In muscles. So what is it that muscles can do that other tissues can't? They can contract. That's what moves your skeleton. Bones don't move by themselves. Muscles move your skeleton. Muscles are pretty important. Plus, smooth muscles make up the organs inside your body. They move substances around inside of your body, including blood and food and so on. Muscles, a big deal. And then nervous tissue, this is what transmits electrical signals. I expect you to know. If I were to ask you on a quiz or an exam, tell me why nervous tissue is different than other kinds of tissue, you should be able to tell me that. It transmits electrical signals. And then finally, organs. So we've been moving up from the bottom level, and we're now almost to the top. Organs, by definition, are composed of 2 or more tissues. Organs also perform specific functions. Organs usually have recognizable shapes. So, for example, in the lower left, you see the stomach. The stomach is an organ. It's composed of actually all 4 kinds of tissue. You can see there they've labeled some muscle and some epithelial. There's also connective and nervous tissue in the stomach as well. It also has a recognizable shape, and it performs a specific function. It mashes up food that you've just swallowed. So make sure you know the definition of an organ. I may ask you that at some point. So here's a slide that I just put in for you. I'm not going to go over it, but it talks about the different levels of organization in the human body, the 4 different kinds of tissues. I put slides like this in because from time to time you should go back and review these slides. You should be able to identify what's going on in these slides. It's a little bit of a test of your learning, okay? And then finally, at the highest level up, we have the organismal level, the organism, all right? So organ system levels, the organ system is made of multiple organs. So for example, you see the digestive system on the lower left. All of those different individual organs make up the digestive system. The digestive system is what processes nutrients in your body. These are organs that are all connected by a common purpose. Again, in the case of the digestive system, it's the way to get nutrients into your body. All right. Some organs can belong to more than one organ system. The pancreas, for example, is a digestive organ. The pancreas is actually also an endocrine organ. It secretes a very important hormone that you may have heard about called insulin. So we just went through all the levels of organization. We will be jumping back and forth between those levels constantly all semester long. Now then, the organismal level, again, here the entire organism. You have organs, then organ systems, and then the organism. That's you. Remember, it's not an orgasm. That's a different thing. You are an organism. It's many organ systems together. Do you know how many organ systems there are in the human body? I wouldn't expect you to know it right now, but from this moment on, you will have to know that. There are 11 organ systems in the human body. Let's talk about what they are briefly. In Bio 201, we will cover the integumentary system, the skeletal system, the muscular system, and the nervous system. Integumentary is the skin. I often say that Bio 201 is kind of like we study the infrastructure of the human body. It's like the sidewalks and the railroad tracks and the telephone lines and things like that. It's what your body is actually, it's the structure, it's what you're made up of. It's in Bio 202 where we really go inside, deep inside, and start looking at all that stuff in your abdomen and in your thorax, kind of like going down into the basement of a big building where it's noisy and smelly. That's what Bio 202 is, noisy and smelly. So the digestive system, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, the lymphatic system, the urinary system, the endocrine system, the reproductive system. So count those for yourself, verify. Don't even have to take off your shoes for this one. Notice there are 7 organ systems covered in Bio 202, only 4 covered in Bio 201. That's why in general Bio 202 is a much more difficult class than Bio 201. We do the easy one first, the difficult one comes next. Now, even though those organ systems, the 7 listed for Bio 202, even though we don't cover them in detail until Bio 202, in Bio 201 you still have to know basically what they do. If you'll check your syllabus, you'll see there are course objectives, and one of the course objectives, which I have to do, when I signed a contract to teach this class, my signature said that I promised to teach every one of those course objectives. So I would anyway, but so you will have to know what each one of those systems does. So let's start taking a look at what they do, because some of them might not be familiar to you. Let's take a look. First, we have the integumentary system on the left. For each one, I've tried to point out something that a lot of people don't seem to know or they seem to forget. The skin is where you make vitamin D. That's a big deal. You can't live without vitamin D. It's an incredibly important vitamin. We're going to talk about it a lot. You'll have that on your first exam. We'll talk about 3 hormones that control vitamin D in your body. You'll have to know what they are, exactly what they do. The skeletal system, yeah, it's your bones. Did you know that that's where you make your blood? Yes, you make blood in your skeletal system, in what's called the red bone marrow. The muscular system is what makes heat. So when the muscular system burns ATP to move the muscles around, as you already know from Bio 156, you know that in aerobic respiration, you take oxygen and glucose and you make ATP plus 3 byproducts. A helpful byproduct, water, a toxic byproduct, carbon dioxide, and heat. That's why you have a stable body temperature. Your muscles are making all of that heat. Other cells in your body make the heat as well, but muscles are where most of your heat is generated. The nervous system, so muscles and glands don't do things by themselves. It's nerve signals that tell them to do that. When you reach out to pick something up, it was nerve signals that caused your muscles to contract so that you could do that. The endocrine system regulates growth and repair. So as you're growing, the endocrine system is of course quite active. But even as an adult, every day, you're tearing little things inside your body, little things are breaking down. It's your endocrine system secreting hormones, things like growth hormone, that help you repair yourself. That's why the athletes cheat with it, because if you're taking growth hormone, you can repair faster, bounce back faster. Cardiovascular system, it transports oxygen and glucose and CO2 and other nutrients. Oxygen and glucose are what every cell in your body needs in order to stay alive. Every cell in your body has to make ATP, otherwise it dies, right? We have a special name for a cell that's not making ATP, and that name is dead. Cells have to have oxygen and glucose to make their ATP. Then again, from aerobic respiration, you generate carbon dioxide as a waste product, and you have to get it out of your body. If carbon dioxide builds up in your body, you can go into a state of acidosis, and that's not good. The lymphatic system might be one you haven't heard of before. The lymphatic system basically transports fluid in your body. So in the capillaries, which are cardiovascular, when nutrients leak out, water leaks out with them, what we call plasma. And then not only do you have blood vessels, you have lymphatic vessels. Lymphatic vessels pick up that extra water, that plasma, and then they return it back to the blood. So a disorder of the lymphatic system, if your lymphatic vessels are blocked, you end up with edema, which is the fancy name for swelling. The lymphatic system is also the home of your immune system. That's how your immune cells can travel around inside of your body. That's why it's called the lymphatic system. It's for lymphocytes. Respiratory system is how you get the oxygen in and the CO2 out. So the cardiovascular system transports the oxygen and the glucose. It's the respiratory system that gets them in and out of your body. And finally, well, not finally, the digestive system is next. That's how you get nutrients in and waste products out. So you need, again, in addition to the oxygen, you need glucose. That's how you get glucose in. That's how you get proteins in order to grow and repair. And then waste products, whatever you can't use, you have to get out. Otherwise, it would build up inside your body and you would explode, and that would be ugly and gross. So your body has to get the waste products out. The urinary system, what does it do? Ask the typical person. I go, it makes pee. Yeah, but why? Why does the urinary system make urine? That's how we get urine, urinary, same root word. It's because it filters the blood and regulates blood pressure. The kidneys are incredibly important for filtering your blood. They get bad things out. Things like urea, things like creatinine, things like lactic acid, other things. The kidney removes those from your blood. That's why if your kidneys don't work, toxins build up in your blood and you have to go for dialysis. The kidney also has a very important system called the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system that regulates your blood pressure. In fact, the urinary system is the most important regulator for blood pressure in the human body, certainly in terms of the drugs available. There's so many drugs that work on the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, which is all triggered by the kidneys. And then finally, the reproductive system. That's what you guys are out practicing all weekend long. That's what keeps the planet supplied with idiots. So like when I drive and I'm driving down like La Cañada, there are 2 lanes in each direction, and in both lanes in front of me there will be cars side by side going 10 miles an hour under the speed limit. Those people need to be eliminated from planet Earth. I've always thought of mounting heat-seeking missiles on the side of my truck. Push a little button on the dashboard. Get rid of those people. Okay, have you been following along? Which organ system is involved in water retention, thermoregulation, and the synthesis of vitamin D? Now, maybe you've never seen the word thermoregulation before. You should be able to figure it out. Regulates your body temperature. Is it lymphatic, integumentary, cardiovascular, urinary, or digestive? I put slides like this in the PowerPoint so you can test yourself to see if you're paying attention. You should know the answer to that based on what we've talked about so far. Think that over. So did you figure it out? Yes, it's the integumentary system. Remember, vitamin D made in the skin. Skin also holds water in, keeps you from losing too much, except when you're overheated, and then you can sweat. And that's how it does thermoregulation. You have a layer of adipose under the skin that holds heat in. When you overheat, you can sweat, and that cools you down. And that's Dead Horse Point. Well, I'm standing on Dead Horse Point looking down on the Colorado River. This is near Moab. Beautiful place. In the lower right, you can see the Potash Road. I drive that every year. That links up with what's called the White Rim Road, which is a 100-mile four-wheel drive road, and it's wonderful. When I go in July, there's no people on it. I have the whole 100 miles to myself. Usually take about 3 days to do it. Great way to avoid human beings, which is pretty much what I try to do for an entire month each summer. Okay, peeps, I'll see you in the next annotated PowerPoint.